Is past our meeting time, and why don't we get started with our inaugural meeting? I expect this will be rather shorter than some of the other ones that we will be in the future, and certainly shorter than some of the ones we had 5 years ago. First item on the agenda is call to order and roll call. So John, if you could call the roll, please.
Certainly. Chairperson Kraus.
Here.
Member Hatchall.
Present.
Member Tewart.
Here.
Member Treffs.
Here.
Member Douglas.
Here.
And then I show members Russell and Snowblend are not here this evening.
Thank you. We have a quorum. So this is new to me. The next item, the approval of the agenda. I assume that simply means if there are any of the task force members that want to add something to the agenda, now's the time to do it. Otherwise, we'll move forward. So seeing no changes to the agenda, we'll approve that. Item D is a statement of visitors. The Park District, as all public bodies in Lake Bluff, allow a portion of time at the beginning of every meeting for members of the public to address the particular body on items that are within the purview of that organization or committee and are not on the agenda. We do have a number of individuals I see that have dialed in. If there's anyone that would like to address us on an item that's not on the agenda or within our purview.
They can raise their hand.
So I think most of us know how to raise our hand on
The virtual hand.
the virtual hand. So seeing none, let us move to verbal communications. Paul, why don't you start? Thank you for joining us. Your perspective, Paul and I have talked a couple of times now about what this task force is, what our remit is, and what the wishes of the Park District commissioners are. But Paul, if you could just give us a little bit of background, just the level of playing field, and help us understand what it is the commission's looking for us to do.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself to those of you whom I have not met. I'm Paul Greenfield. I'm president of the Park District Board of Commissioners. And on behalf of the Lake Bluff Park District Board of Commissioners, first of all, I want to thank you all for agreeing to be members of this task force. The issues that you will be dealing with are really complex, and the implications for the Park District community are potentially permanent and really incredibly significant. You've already received the basic remit that the board has agreed to for your task force, and the packet of information was sent to you all yesterday, which contains an expansion of that remit, as well as some other documents and emails outlining the background to this investigation. First of all, I would like to stress that your focus should not be on stormwater storage. There are other areas, other locations, and other means of finding storage for stormwater originating in and flooding North Chicago and the Naval Base. You are on a fact-finding mission to investigate whether, in fact, the Park District can earn a substantial amount of money by creating artificial wetlands where we now have our golf course and selling credits for those wetlands to developers in other areas. As I'm sure you're all aware, there's a broad difference of opinion about this, and these different opinions have manifested themselves at a number of our board meetings. As the board members have discovered, there really are a lot of moving parts to the issue of wetlands and wetland credits. And we are asking you to dig down into the facts involved in this issue, going beyond these various opinions that are being given. But above all, I think it is critical for you to keep in mind that once wetlands have been created, federal law prevents them from being changed. So wetlands would be in existence in perpetuity, which means the park district would have no options to do anything else with the land, ever. I think that should give you some idea of the importance of your work in this investigation. It really is an issue looking at a permanent change to the park district. The task force is not meant to be a public forum, nor is it meant to look into immediate land use issues or golf course issues. As you will see later when you talk about the remit, it is meant to investigate the financial, environmental, and long-term land use impacts on the Lake Bluff Park District community relating to the creation of wetlands and the selling of wetlands credits. Once we receive your report, the board will then decide the appropriate way to proceed. So again, we thank you very, very much for this important work. It really is critical. We are very much looking forward to your report. Again, and it was John who came up with the idea of asking the members of the land use task force that worked in 2014, I believe, 2014, 2015, to be on this task force. It was really because of, we all looked at that report. I know I certainly did. And the professionalism of your work and how you went about it and the results that you came up with were extremely impressive. And I think we all felt very comfortable then asking you to look into this because of the importance of what we're looking at. I know at a certain point, and Steve, I don't know if now is the time when you want Emily to speak. Emily Lane has been selected as the commissioner liaison for the task force. So I know whether it's right now or, down the agenda just a little bit, she will speak to you. And then we'll certainly be available for any questions you might have. And then you go about your work.
Yeah, so hi, thank you, Paul. So I'm Emily Lane. A few of you know me. For those of you who don't, I'm commissioner on the board. And so I just wanted to introduce myself and just say I'll be the connector for the board and the task force. So if you need something from the board, I'll go get it and figure that out. Or if the board needs something from you guys, I'm just that connecting piece. So I'm the link between the two groups. So here to just be that bridge. So if there's any questions, if any way I can help to make sure that we're moving forward, I'm here for that. Any questions for me? Okay, thanks. Thanks again for volunteering to do this. I really appreciate it. And like Paul said, the board really appreciates it because again, it's a volunteer position. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's spend a few minutes just introducing ourselves. Some of us know each other very well. Some of us I'm just meeting for the first time tonight. So I'll start. Steve Kress. I've lived in Lake Bluff since 1975. I am a retired consultant, consulting partner. I've served on a variety of volunteer committees and task forces over the years, including planning, zoning, historic preservation, land use, and others. To me, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to consider a transformative change, a transformative undertaking for the Park District. It's also an opportunity for me personally to learn about something that I know very little about. I know nothing about wetland, well, I shouldn't say nothing. 2 weeks ago, I knew nothing about wetland credits, didn't know they existed. I now know about that much. And hopefully in 2 months, we'll all know a whole lot. So there's for me, there's quite a personal knowledge base that I need to develop. And I'm looking forward to running through all the materials with this group. Mark, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Mark Dewar. Lived in Lake Bluff for 40 years now, and most recently completed 10 years on the Lake Bluff Village Board. And I guess more recently than that, chaired the Lake Bluff 125th Committee, which became the 125th plus 1. Unfortunately, did not become the 125th plus 2. And for that, I know that the Park District is deeply pleased. This, as Steve said, this is a very interesting proposition for me. And while serving on the Land Use Committee, we kind of probably dipped our toe in, relatively speaking, to the issues that are related to this. And as Chair Greenfield and Steve have indicated, this is a permanent possibilities of change, once in a lifetime. It's an onerous opportunity that we have, and I too appreciate the opportunity to sort of expand my experience base and apply what I've come to use in other applications. I was with Abbott Laboratories for a very long time in a variety of positions and responsibilities. Finally in engineering and product development. So project management is I guess, part of my forte. So Steve, back to you.
Great. Rob, you want to take a few minutes?
Well, I'll make it quick. Well, first of all, Emily, I played the role that you're playing now when the Land Use Committee was in place a couple years back. I was on the park board 10 years and a couple of years as board president. So I know what you're all dealing with. It's an interesting place to be for sure. Been in the community here 20 plus years. Honestly, when I came to the park board, one of my objectives was trying to do master planning for the park district. And I think in many ways during that 10 years, we were able to accomplish a lot of that. And this task force land use was a really valuable exercise to go through, because I don't think any of us really took a big picture snapshot of the complexities of the edges around Lake Bluff and all the pieces within it. So, and I might add too that we tapped into George Russell's endless vault of memory on everything in the town, particularly really with a lot of the subterranean engineering that he has just a wealth of knowledge of. So look forward to spending some time with him again on this committee, but look forward to trying to navigate this and figure out just really what is the best thing for the park district to do here. There seem to be some very interesting opportunities, but there's a lot of facts that need to be gathered so we can better assess really what our ultimate options are. But it's intriguing what we're going to be discussing here, and we'll see just where it takes us.
Great, thank you. Julie?
Sure. I'll be even briefer than that, just by saying my name's Julie Gottschall. I've been a resident of Lake Bluff since 2004. I spent 4 years on the library board, during which time we did a renovation of the library. I then spent 8 years on the school board, during which time we did a renovation of the middle school. So I'd like to think I know a little something about transformational change in Lake Bluff, but I will confess I know absolutely nothing about wetlands or credits or land use. I am an attorney, but not in an area of expertise that has anything to do with the issues that we will be confronting specifically. But I do look forward to listening with an open mind and evaluating the evidence and reading through the documents. Those are the skill sets that I bring, and working collaboratively with everyone. So thank you for the opportunity to join. I will just add, the reason that I was on the initial committee was as the school board representative. I am no longer with the school board, but I do have the history with this particular committee. So thanks to all.
Thank you. And Al.
I've been in Lake Bluff since 2000. I've worked for Ford and for Case New Holland for over 30 years in controllership, analysis, treasury, and investor relations with an MBA in finance. I'm the past treasurer and past president of the Lake Bluff 4th of July Committee. I was a member of the 2014 Lake Forest, Lake Bluff Park District Joint Task Force on looking at options for combining programs. And I am also the treasurer of Lake Bluff Open Lands and have been for over 10 years. I have no knowledge of wetlands or wetland credits, and I'm looking forward to understanding the whole process and the potential opportunities for the Lake Bluff Park District.
Great. Thanks, all of you. I think we all share the same interest in learning about something that we know very little about. John, could you take a few minutes to introduce yourself to the task force?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for that opportunity. My name is John Beeler. I'm the executive director with the Park District, and I've only been in this position for about 1 year and 4 months, so still relatively new to the Park District and to the community. Although I do have a little over 30 years of experience in the field as a director of Parks and Recreation in other communities here in Illinois and also Washington State. It's been a very interesting past year, coming in under these during the pandemic and seeing that the Park District is working on a lot of issues, but we've also able to accomplish a number of projects during this past year, and I'm really pretty excited to be a part of the Park District and know that we have a lot of great facilities and programs that are widely used, and I think in a lot of ways really pretty essential for our residents here in Lake Bluff. So I think that this is, as everybody's mentioned, this is a kind of a there's just a lot of complexities to this topic, and I know a lot more now than I did previously about wetland and the credits and different information. I think we'll continue to learn, and I'm looking forward to working with the task force. I do, personally appreciate everyone's willingness to volunteer for this task force and to help with this, as the Park District figures out this issue and figures out how, the best steps to move forward.
Great.
I would just also mention, just real briefly, we also have Noah on the meeting this evening, and he is our superintendent. He's been very involved with our, of course, our park maintenance in the golf course itself for quite a few years, and will be a good resource for us to use as we go forward.
Hello, Noah.
Good evening.
Good evening, Noah. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again, too.
Yeah, good to see you, Noah.
Long time.
Okay, let's let's turn to the task force remit. It was a 2-page document in the front of the packet. I'd like to kind of give my 2 cents worth with participation from all of us, because this is where we start, and frankly, when we write the final report, this is where we'll go back to make sure that we're meeting our goals and objectives. So it seems to me that there, as Paul said, I mean, the ultimate mission here is to look at wetland credits as an opportunity or as a threat for development or reuse of Park District land. But to me, and again, I'd like some thought on this from the group, to me, the place to start, there are two issues here. So one is there is a request from a county body, the Lake County Stormwater Management Commission, to use a portion of the golf course for mitigation of stormwater. That is a fairly well-developed proposal. The Park District has met with the stormwater management people. While it is not central to what we're going to be studying, to me, it still is something we need to understand. We need to understand what the stormwater pressures are up north and build a fact base as to what that commission is looking for the Park District to do or not to do. I think that's a relatively self-contained analysis, and I would suggest that we think about that as a topic for our February meeting to understand what that particular proposal is, so that we can answer the 7 questions that are in the middle of the first page of the remit. What's the ultimate goal of the Stormwater Management Commission with their project? What role do wetlands play in meeting this goal? That's a critical piece. Financial risks and benefit just from that program to the Park District. The environmental and land use risks, again, just from the stormwater issue. What's the benefits of Lake Bluff? What alternatives might exist? And then number 7, which leads us to the bigger discussion that we'll have hopefully beginning in March. How does preservation of wetlands feed into complement or not complement the stormwater management folks' initiative? So think about what we want to see, who we want to talk to understand the fact base around the stormwater management proposal, recognizing that that's only a piece of our work product, that the big piece is the wetland credit piece. And that's discussed on page 2 of the remit. So the issues of creating and maintaining wetlands and the sale of wetlands credits is a key to our task, and I agree that it is. So here we have 10 issues to begin our discussion of that portion, an understanding of how wetland credits work. So we definitely, Paul and John and Emily, we need an outside expert unless the expertise exists internally, but someone who can explain, or a firm or people who can explain what wetland credits are, how they operate, not with respect to Lake Bluff, not with respect to the proposals that have been circulating in various entities around town, but how they work in the abstract, so that we understand at its basis, at a fact base, what we're dealing with when we say a wetland credit. So that to me is a critical thing, and again, we need to think about who we reach out and ask for a presentation. Included with that would be the concept of how credits are sold, how they're valued, that whole process, what the timeline is, what the financial arrangements are. I'm familiar with one of the volunteer tasks that I was involved with was the founding board chair of a inner city Chicago charter school. And as part of that, we went through a lot of grant applications and we used alternative credit arrangements to do some rehabilitation. And this seems slightly similar to that in the fact that there are brokers, there are attorneys, there are bankers, there are consultants, they all take pieces. And the question is, how much is that and how we minimize it essentially long-term. So there's a whole panoply of agents that we need to be thinking about and understanding what their roles would be. The difference between, I don't know what this is, between Army Corps of Engineer wetlands banks and the Lake County wetland banks, that to me is a fact-based, somebody can tell us that, hopefully, so we understand it. I talked about the role of wetland credit bankers, performance bonds, the history of selling wetland credits as a money-making tool. So to the degree that there are other governmental entities, or I suppose nonprofit entities that have used wetland credits as a way to raise capital for performing their mission, that would be very interesting to hear some case studies about those organizations and how they thought of wetland credits and of using them. Categories of land used to convert the wetlands, the process of converting it sounds complicated, I'm sure it is. The process of maintaining, because again, there's one issue in pulling the trigger to actually create the wetland. There's a whole nother issue. And as Paul said, a permanent asset to the community that is a wetland that needs to be permanently maintained by the community. So we need to factor that long-term cost into our financial analysis, into our land use analysis, and into our community amenity analysis. And then it appears that there are grants that are part of wetland credit opportunities. So let me stop there, and task force members, any comments, thoughts, questions just from looking at the remit? Or staff, any comments on my comments?
Well,
Perhaps this is just splitting of hairs, but are we looking at the impacts on Lake Bluff as a village, or are we looking at the impacts on the Lake Bluff Park District, which includes more than the village of Lake Bluff?
So, Paul, I'll turn to you, but let me give you my initial reaction. My initial reaction is that the role of this task force is to consider the impact on the park district, because we're an adjunct of the park district board, so we're a fact gathering body that hopefully will have a series of recommendations or alternatives to present to the park board. But in my view, it's the park board's responsibility to think about the longer term impact and to choose the options perhaps that we have recommended. So Paul, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree 100%. We're looking at the impact on the park district and the park district community. Broader questions are really beyond our remit as a park district board. That's not our role or our jobs to do. So we're really looking at the impact on the park district.
Good. I was hoping you would say that.
Mark, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just going through here, and I was going to ask about time frame. What I think you kind of introduced the notion of what done is done. But in going through the information, I've heard that and read that grant expiration appears to be 2023, end of 2023. The other date that I read in here is that there is a contract with Gulf Visions that expires end of 2022. So somewhere in here, it appears that we have the better part of 12 months to work our way through here. Paul or John, can you clarify that?
The contract with Gulf Visions actually expires the end of 2023.
Right. Very good. So that's congruent or coincident with the grant programs, correct?
With one grant program that is being proposed.
Okay. I don't want to peel the onion too far off. I just wanted to have some idea of what our working task looks like. And that's fine for me.
And Mark, that's a good question. So we've been asked to complete our work by June 30th. So we have really 5 months to do our work and present a report. I would anticipate that part of that report will be a timeline.
Mhm.
So one of the things we need to learn about wetland credits is how long they take to get activated, what the process is. Is it 6 months? Is it 2 years? Is it 5 years? Same thing with the stormwater management folks. So I think we'll build a prototype timeline, maybe multiple, depending on opportunities that we see available. But we're looking at a June 30th, 2022 for our group to have a report to the park, a written report to the park board. I'm assuming we'll have some opportunities to have dialogue with the park board after that.
Very good.
Okay. And Rob, did I see you?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention some observations, at least when I was on the park board. I don't remember exactly what the year was, but this was a meeting we had. Actually, the engineers came to the board because of the viaduct on 41 where the railroad tracks go over. That viaduct floods regularly, and they wanted to add another pipe discharging it into the Skokie, well, I refer to it as the Skokie Ditch. Not an elegant name, but they like to say it's a river. But it was a very interesting presentation that really didn't go anywhere at that point. But I also, so that occurred, and I guess we can go back into the files and find out exactly when that first was brought to us. The other thing is the land use task force, when we were looking at a lot of the lands around the perimeter of Lake Bluff in the Park District, the land west of 41, north of the railroad tracks behind that industrial park strip there is IDOT owned land, which I believe 41 was originally going to be going up through there, and it didn't. But IDOT owns that land, so that's another variable that I always thought, gosh, if we have problems with flooding, why doesn't IDOT do some sort of detention there? Because it is considered wetlands. So just want to put that out there as far as forces that are impacting this whole process we're going through, that IDOT is out there too. I don't know exactly what their role is, but they have a big piece of land adjacent to us just to the northwest. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, and there's that's a good point. And there are other relatively substantial properties in and around Lake Bluff, close to Lake Bluff, that we identified 5-6 years ago as vacant land, open space. It would seem to me, Rob, that that your question is a perfect one for the stormwater management people, since they're the ones responsible for moving stormwater from one place to another. Yeah, that'd be a great question. Have you considered that, or why haven't you? Assuming we go that path.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to put it out there. It's
great.
There are a lot of pieces to this puzzle that are floating around, and I'm just trying to get a little higher perspective and not just focus on our park district, but what are the forces that are acting on us.
I think there are a lot of issues, and one of the things I've been thinking about and talking with John about is how we now have a multicolored vision of what some people think a solution might be. Well, that's not where we need to start. It's an interesting solution, but what we need to do is start at the basics. So what are the stormwater management issues? What are wetland credits? I don't even know exactly where the wetlands are that are part of the golf course. So there's basic facts that we need to understand and build up and present to the park board so that they can evaluate it based on the totality of the needs of the park district.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is that we need to set meeting dates, which we'll do the last thing that we, before we leave. But what I'm going to suggest is that we meet in February and we focus from a fact base on what the Stormwater Management Commission is proposing. Why did they come to the Park District and want to use Park District land to store water? So what are the facts? And then what discussions have happened between that commission and the Park District? And what potential opportunities are there to make that work, or that it doesn't make sense? But I think there's some facts that we can gather. And I would suggest, John, that if we could, assuming that people are available, have either a Zoom call with or some presentation. I'm looking for his name. Not Ashley.
Kurt Wolfer.
Yeah, the engineer. I also saw in one of your meetings that the president of the Stormwater Commission was attending one of the meetings. So whoever the appropriate representative or representatives that could give us a fact-based history on why who that organization is, what they exist to do, because I didn't know they existed. I mean, they report to the county, but they're not funded through the county. So there's an interesting structure there. They want to work with us because they perceive we're maybe more flexible than the federal government. Hard to believe. But I would like to hear from them on a fact base as to what it is they're proposing, and then have a discussion around how that would fit in to some of the objectives that have been set up for us. So that would be number one in February. Number two in February would be what I would love to see a primer on wetland credits. So if we can find an organization who actually is a broker selling or buying wetland credits, or an investment banker, or an attorney, or a consultant who has a track record in actually, or a municipal representative or a nonprofit representative who's actually done this, but someone who can tell us and can answer our questions as to exactly what a wetland credit is, how it's created, how it's bought, how it's sold, how it's financed, what the time frame is, what the costs are. So a primer on wetland credits and wetland credit management, to try to coin a phrase here, is how we manage that whole process. So I would think those two would be agenda items for next month, kind of as setting the baseline for our initial discussions. How does that sound to the group?
A good place to start. Yes, that sounds
First
good.
principles.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd love to know how to value a wetland credit. How do you value it?
Yeah, there is some stuff online. There's not a lot. There is some stuff online, and they talk about, the quote unquote market forces, that the price of a credit is driven by market forces. Well, that's a lot of economic mumbo jumbo. There's more to it than that we need to really understand, and understand if there's a variable cost, if there's a variable price,
Yeah.
what the market, all that stuff. We just need to understand what that is before we can actually do an evaluation as to the efficacy of moving down that path for the Park District. So, John, I assume it'll be relatively easy to get the stormwater management people, since they seem to be chomping at the bit to talk to Lake Bluff. I assume that would be relatively easy.
I believe so. I'd be happy to reach out and check with their availability.
Okay. And does anyone here on this call know who we can reach out to on wetland credits, or do we need to put a little semi-group task force group together to make some phone calls? I know of no one.
I don't know of anyone.
Now,
Uncharted
and I might
territory.
add, I think it would be useful to get a variety of perspectives. So, you know, the banker, the attorney, municipal, you throw out a couple, and I think we would like the perspective of as many of those as we can get.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, I know in my business, I often ran across consulting organizations that claim to be umbrella consultancies that had the legal, financial, accounting, you know, personnel, all the pieces covered. So if there isn't that kind of an umbrella organization that deals with wetland credits, that would be great. But at least someone who can give us a basic understanding, not related to the current, not related to Lake Bluff at all, but just here's bare bones, black and white, what stuff works.
I'll
So-
check with the environmental lawyer at my firm and see if she knows anything or knows anyone who knows anything.
Good.
I can-
I'll actually check with the managing partner of my consulting practice. There is a environmental consultancy that's part of it, so there may be somebody there that we can tap into. And John, I'll talk with you and see what we can come up with.
I seem to recall in here that Naperville may have been down this path before. Did I read that correctly?
Correct. That's on page 12 of the packet. Jennifer Beeler, who's the vice president of the park board, reached out to some different individuals and just trying to collect information. So there are some listed, such as the supervisor of the Libertyville Township that created wetlands there, and then Naperville Park District's listed on there as well.
Yeah, they may be network contacts as well for us, Steve.
Yeah, as well as the, what a great title, Wetland Specialist Highland Park. There's another one there. So, John, let's talk about how we reach out to these folks. I may be reaching out to commission members to see if they want to help create liaisons with some of these folks, and the more the merrier working on this. But Naperville, Libertyville, Highland Park, that would be great. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's consider those as items for our next meeting, which brings me to the next meeting date. Wednesdays aren't good for a couple of us who are on the commission. George has 2 Wednesdays taken. I have personally 2 Wednesdays taken, so I'm going to assume Wednesday's not going to work. How about a Tuesday? The second Tuesday, the third Tuesday?
Tuesdays are good for me. Any
Second Tuesday would work for me. Not the third.
Okay, Mark?
I can do that. Do we, given the time frame, which is now down to 5 months, I'm assuming do we want to plan on meeting how many times per month?
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Why don't we, well, let's do this. Why don't we think about meeting twice a month? How about the second and fourth Tuesday? And we can always cancel one of those if we don't need the meeting. I'd rather have too many than not enough.
Sounds good.
Second
Well,
and
perhaps we could work one of these meetings, either the Stormwater Management Commission meeting or with one of these wetland credit people on the second or the fourth Tuesday of January before our next meeting.
would that work for folks?
It should. I would think, to your point, Al, I would think that we could get the stormwater management folks in here pretty quickly. Or I'd hope we could anyway.
I would think so.
I mean, they're local and don't require a lot of research on our part.
Right.
So that would be Tuesday, the 25th, right?
Correct.
Yep.
That works with me.
Okay.
All right, thank
Here.
you, Al. Great idea. And even if we just get the stormwater management people, and we
Yeah.
just, that one thing, that would be great. And
If they can take us to school on that in one meeting, we'll be doing pretty well.
yeah, and then if we do the first one in February, that actually has the primer on wetland credits.
Mhm.
All right, so this is subject to Nikki and George being available on Tuesdays. I know George, those would be okay for him. I'm not sure about Nikki. John, maybe you can check with her.
Sure.
So we'll go ahead and mark January 25th, and then getting into February the 8th and the 22nd. Should those be markers we hit for our calendars?
Okay. Can you just send out once we get confirmation from George and Nikki, can you just send out a calendar that has the second and the fourth Tuesday, January through May, or January through June? Let's just put them on the calendar and it's easier to cancel.
Sure.
Perfect.
Just as a reference point, as I was going through this, and we mentioned, I'm thumbing through my paperwork and the contacts, there was the one page of contacts that I think, John, you referenced before. One of the notes that I wrote as I was going through all this, here we are, page 12 on that one. Has somebody been down this path before that we already know? I mean, does this imply that Highland Park and is this truly akin to something that Highland Park has gone through? I know that the presentation from the county suggests that. Is that a valid assumption?
I've not spoke with him. I know Jennifer Peeler, I believe, has spoke with him, so she could probably talk a little bit more about that, but I haven't personally spoke with them about their projects and how any similarities.
Yeah, as we begin to think about research here, it might be useful to, find 2 or 3 folks who are proximate, who have been down this path before. And right or wrong, we may agree or disagree with how they've the approach that they've taken, but it would probably be useful to at least interview them and get a sense of whether or not we can use them as a reference point. I'm thinking ahead because, we're, like I said before, we're down to 5 months. We're down to, basically 10 meetings here, and trying to slam as much information as we can and develop the quality of information. So
there is a reference on the minutes of the December 10th meeting on the 4th page. 1, 2, 3, 4, about halfway down. President Greenfield asked if any organization had ever created wetlands for the primary purpose of raising money. Mr. Wolford, who's with the Stormwater Management Organization, replied that wetland bankers, so there's a whole new term for us, wetland bankers, do this, but could not name any other organization or communities that had. So
okay.
Mark, I think it's a really good question. Are there models that we can follow where we're actually looking at changes in land use that could generate an income stream to a public entity? Is there anybody who's done that, or have wetland credits been used for different purposes? I think that's a great question. And hopefully we can get somebody in a couple of weeks to answer that.
Can we get a wetland banker to talk to us?
I'm sure hoping if anybody knows one.
Well, even cold call someone, it might be
Yeah.
a potential business
Yeah.
opportunity for them.
Yeah.
So
Hang on one second. I'm gonna just for kicks, I'm gonna Google wetland banker. I get wetland banker salary.
Oh.
But I Okay, so there's a company, I won't name it since we're in a public meeting, but if you Google, you can find a company that says whether you need to purchase wetland credits, sell credits, blah, 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 here we are. I don't know what state they're in. So yeah, it looks mitigation banks under CWA. Okay, so there's a lot of homework to do, just to understand the resources available to us, but put in wetland banker and have fun.
Yeah, as long as it's not Acme or Easy, I think they're probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else from this group? Great first meeting.
The December 10th memo referenced a 2021, I believe, hydrologic and hydraulic study
Mhm.
performed.
Yeah.
Is that available to us?
I can
I
find out.
don't believe we ever saw that.
Yeah, that would be our friends at Christopher Burke. They do most of the studies in this area, and I think did that study as well. And they should be fairly accessible.
Let's see if we can find it. And if anyone,
John, can we request that?
Yes.
Yeah, and I would think, Al, we could probably make an arrangement to have someone from that organization come talk to us as well.
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
yep,
It's probably pretty technical in nature, so that would be beneficial.
Well, they're used to explaining it to the village board.
no, I won't say. We'll just make sure George is at that
There
meeting.
you go. Yeah.
Okay, anything else from the task force or staff?
I
All
just,
right, so
if you didn't mind, I just briefly wanted to say that this packet was a little bit late in getting sent out. We're having some staffing challenges over the past week and dealing with a lot of COVID situations, frankly, with staffing shortages, et cetera. So I think in the future, you can expect to have this information in your hands with a little bit more time to review it before the meeting. So I apologize for this being a short turnaround.
That would be greatly appreciated.
yeah, so John, if we could have as a target what the village does, and I'm not sure what the park board's routine is, but the Friday before a meeting, so the Friday before our Tuesday meetings, if there could be whatever is available that could be emailed to the commissioners, so we have the weekend, that would be great. And if some pieces of the agenda packet are missing, just send out what you got with a note that, we'll send whatever we have so we can start working on it.
And are you going to use Dropbox, John?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we've already created one for this task force.
Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
I've heard bad things about Dropbox in terms of viruses. I would prefer just to receive a PDF myself, but.
Okay.
I think it can just depend on some of these. If it's if it's a 200-page study, whether we want to include that as a PDF in the packet or put that in the Dropbox. But most of the materials, most of the packets will be PDFs that are just emailed out to the task force members.
Okay.
That's great. Or I could even stop by and pick it up too. I don't know if that's available to people, if you just had the packet at the Park District and we could go and get it.
We are able to do that as well if you want to pick up a paper copy.
Mm-hmm. PDF's good. Otherwise, a packet at the Park District works well.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a whole lot easier to mark up a hard copy, I guess, Julie, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Like this, Mark?
Yeah. Yes, Steve.
All right. Anything else from the task force?
No, good start. Thanks, everyone. I look forward to working with you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Any objections to adjourning? I don't think we need motions and all that stuff. All in favor to adjourn? We are at 27 and talk to you all on the 25th. Please communicate with John if you have any questions or think of things that we should have talked about tonight.
All right.
Okay,
All right, thank you all.
thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.
All again.